Welcome to the Illuminate Universe podcast, The Cast. Get it? The Cast? My name is Alina, and I'm the founder of Illuminate, where we mentor job seekers and help employers to fast-track their business goals. I interview a celebrity cast of incredible individuals who have truly inspiring careers. We're talking about their work journey, the process of taking the leap to create a life and career they love, and what happens when they push aside their fears and doubts to unleash their fullest potential. Today, we speak with Sharon Davis, who is a philanthropy professional, volunteer, and women's advocate. Sharon is the chair of Room to Read's Vancouver chapter. Room to Read is a global nonprofit organization that focuses on working in collaboration with local communities, partner organizations, and governments to improve literacy and gender equality in education. Before joining Room to Read, Sharon was a vice president for Scotia Capital. Currently, she is also the co-founder of her own consulting agency, Giving Well, educating individuals and businesses on the strategies of effective philanthropy. Hi, Sharon. It is such an honor to have you on our podcast today. My first question for you is, could you tell us about your background and what drew you into the nonprofit space?
So I had a successful career in investment finance, which is in some ways quite a departure from the nonprofit sector, and in other ways, a lot of crossover skills. So my experience in business actually provided many skills that were transferable to the nonprofit arena. I left that job and with very little direction in my mind as to where I wanted to go. And I just started volunteering with a number of organizations that aligned with my passions. So I found my business sense was actually valued, and I was quickly being offered board positions, contract work, to sort of help nonprofits navigate their challenges. And so I worked in a number of different areas, from literacy to sport to at-risk youth, and more just to get a sense of how it all worked. I really wanted to understand how the nonprofit side worked. And I was really lucky that I found some wonderful mentors along the way who were and I was just really eager to learn and implement right away. So it was like a crash course in the nonprofit sector. And then after all this exploring and learning, I settled in with an organization, an international charity called Room to Read. And I've worked with them or volunteered with them for a number of years. So the nonprofit world isn't that different from the for-profit world. It's just a matter of how they do their reporting, etc. And they're just working towards that cause. But in both instances, as much as the nonprofit world is changing, so is the business world. So technology, crowdfunding, partnerships, COVID have all had an impact on what's happening in the nonprofit world.
Could you share a bit more about the skills that you brought from the corporate finance world and how those were transferable into the nonprofit world?
The client-based relationships, which is very similar to the donor-based relationships, creating partnerships, working in kind of a sensitive area, because whenever you're talking about money, it's always sensitive to people. So whether that's a client investing their money or a donor investing in a nonprofit organization, there really is no different. They should be treated similarly. And then just finance in general is sort of an area where nonprofits often struggle, keeping their books properly, what can and can't they do, and all of that. So the finance side was great. And then just that networking, building, creating, all of that is really similar in both sides.
So Sharon, how do we talk about money? What are some tips that you have?
I think, first of all, you just have to respect that it's hard for people. So many people in past generations have grown up where that's just like a taboo subject. You just shouldn't talk about it. And so you have to get people, on your side. You have to build that trust. It's not like you just want to dive in the first meeting, ask a donor for money. So that's, what a lot of people think you need to do. It's all about the money, and it's not. It's about the relationship building. And the other side is kind of the youth which we now have a great opportunity to educate them about money and finance and budgeting and all those things that they're going to need in life, which a lot of people didn't learn in school. And then they get out there in the real world and it's really challenging for them. It's great that we're building financial literacy for young people now.
You know, this actually reminds me of the National High School Leadership Conference that we held in Toronto last weekend. And the theme was all about money. So I absolutely agree that we need to start talking about financial literacy at a young age, especially for youth. The challenge that we had was we gave the youth a challenge called the Millionaire Challenge, where they pretended that they were a new graduated from UBC with an arts degree, and they had a $55K annual salaried job, where at the end of the month, they were only able to save up $68. And so we gave them the challenge to come up with a solution of how do you become a millionaire with $68 left each month. And it was pretty interesting. So I absolutely agree that the subject can absolutely be tricky, but it can be very meaningful as well. This leads me to my next question. Describe a day in your life and your favorite parts about working in a nonprofit.
I think one of the things I like most about it is no 2 days are alike. So you're always talking to different people from different walks of life. And probably the only thing that you have in common to start with, if you're talking to someone who's coming to your nonprofit, is you're both passionate about the cause, whatever it is that they're a nonprofit for. So every nonprofit's different. They're all trying to solve a problem, an issue, or help their community or the world in some way. And that to me is inspiring. So just having that ability to work in that environment is, I think it's an honor. And so I start typically just by learning as much as I can about the organization, and then sort of find out what they're doing right, what their challenges are, what resources they have, and then what they need. And then start to explore putting together an approach of how we can help them, and whether that's they want to improve their social media presence, whether they want to, improve their donations, so get more donations in the door. A lot of it is just so personal to that nonprofit. So for me, every interaction becomes a different story. And my favorite part is that they're so appreciative of everything that people do for them. It's not like when you're in a regular job and somebody goes, "Oh, thanks." Like they really genuinely appreciate what you're doing, and they can't believe that someone's there doing that for them, and nothing's really taken for granted. So when a new implementation like that starts, it's a really uplifting experience, and there's a lot of buy-in on the part of the nonprofit because they really want to see themselves improve, or they wouldn't be at this point in their journey. So once they get a little taste of it, and you change a few small things and they see the possibilities, then they're like open to whatever you can bring to the table. So I think it's that level of appreciation and that openness to just learn, because sometimes it's a big case of they don't know what they don't know.
How would you describe the atmosphere in the nonprofit world? We know in the corporate world, it's all about precision. It's perfection. It's doing everything absolutely right. In the startup space, it's a little bit all over the place. You're moving with various parts every day. The only constant is rapid change. And startup founders really have to adjust with that, with limited resources and a very tight timeline. How would you describe the atmosphere in the nonprofit space?
It's sometimes a little bit like the startup space, as you mentioned, because a lot of nonprofits for many years were just chasing the money, and they weren't doing it in a very concise way. And it was all about the next donation and the next donation. And we can't do this till we get the money. And there was no plan in place. So it wasn't like they had these goals and then they went out and fundraised to reach them. It would be like, okay, we got some money and now what can we do? And so that part of it is starting to evolve and change. And they just need to learn to run their operation more like a business in that sense, like have goals, have a plan, and not just a 6-month or a 1-year plan, but a long-term plan. Like any business, they have a lot of challenges, and it's more convincing them that there's a more effective way to do this, because they do just seem to be in this constant cycle of chasing the money. So there's organizations that rely solely on grants. They're incredibly vulnerable if those grants disappear on them. There's those who just rely on the one-off annual donations, and they don't have any sense of security. You don't know if that donor is coming back next year. You can call them and you can ask for more money, but there's no guarantee there. So there's just sort of so much hanging in the abyss for them. And what they really need to find is partners. They need to find long-term partners who are willing to get in deep with them for 3 to 5 years. And yes, we're going to support you and we're going to help you in any way we can. And it's not just about money. It's sometimes all the in-kind things. It's can we help you with your IT? You know, we're a law firm and we're your partner now. Can we give you legal advice? Or we're an accounting firm, or we have an accountant who works for us. Can he come over, once a month and help you with your accounting? The IT department can help them with their software to maybe communicate better with their donors. So all those things are helpful. And if they don't have to pay for them, that's a bonus. Because if they had to pay for them, they probably wouldn't do it because they don't have the resources to do that. They're more concerned about focusing on their programs and not spending money on how they're going to up their game. So once that partnership is formed, it becomes like a win-win situation. It's now a two-way street. It's not just the donor giving to you. You're working together. Maybe the nonprofit is thinking of starting some kind of a new program. They can brainstorm it out with their partner. Maybe their partner is even willing to take ownership of that and fund it for them and get the publicity for doing that. So there's so many ways that they can start to take an active role in the nonprofit and go from there and just see what develops. But it's almost like a marriage. We often talk in the nonprofit sector about how finding the perfect charity for you as a corporation is a bit like dating. It's having passion, it's having aligned values, it's having common interests. So all those pieces fit together, and that's what you're looking for when you're bringing together a donor and a nonprofit or a charity. So I don't think a lot of people see it that way, but it really is. I mean, we're all driven by our values and our passions, and so it just makes sense to me.
So I know that Room to Read engages volunteers incredibly well, and it also goes into communities in third world countries and helps to build that community into a sustainable economy of its own. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
So it's kind of two separate entities. So the communities that we work in overseas are all local nationals who work there. We don't catapult people from North America over to Cambodia to do work. So we hire all local nationals, which is providing jobs, providing experience, and just tapping into all their local knowledge. And the language, of course, is key as well. So the other side of it, the fundraising side of it, we've developed over the years a chapter network where we have these volunteer chapter networks, and they're in multiple cities around the world. And they're kind of like a little small business in a way, because once you form it, you can do whatever you want to fundraise. So there's nobody dictating how you do this work. So you can have whatever events you like to have, you can have your own social media campaigns, and you just bring together a group of like-minded volunteers that want to form this committee and meet on a regular basis and find what it is your specific committee in your city is passionate about doing and what that might look like. So it really has created a lot of unique events around the globe, and it connects to a lot of people in our own communities to create that awareness for Room to Read and the plight of illiteracy around the world. And then the fundraising is the added bonus in the end.
And so what are some tips and advice you would give young professionals aspiring to enter the nonprofit world?
Do it, for starters. Just do it. Don't overthink it. Follow your passion. So if you're wanting to work in the nonprofit, it's got to be more than just a job. It's a mission. So look for the right fit, look for things within yourself that are aligned with the work that this person is doing. It's not just, oh, let me attach myself to this nonprofit because they're going somewhere. It's not that kind of thing. So in Canada, when it comes to jobs, paid jobs in the nonprofit sector, there is still some pay discrepancy for the similar work that you would do in the corporate world. And that is just because of the restrictions of resources. They just don't have the money always to pay as much as you might make doing that same job for a for-profit company. It's getting a lot better. It's definitely gotten a lot better in the US. And it just continues to improve, but there's still a little bit of a lag there. And like any job, get out and learn as much as you can about the organization itself. So if you were applying for a job at, Amazon or wherever, you would learn about the organization before you went in for that interview. So it's no different in that sense. And I think one thing that really stands out a lot at the nonprofits is that creativity. So take something that's really out there and present it to them and see how they respond to that. And that might give you some clues as to what the working situation might be like. Attend one of their events and see them in action. And, you can kind of be behind the scenes. They don't even know who you are. Or you could just make a small donation and see how they engage with their donors. So how are you received as a donor? And networking has been a mainstay for me in navigating the nonprofit sector. You just have to get out there and talk to a lot of people. And it doesn't mean attending every event in town. It means selectively talking to people on an informational level, not a job application approach. So I have weekly conversations with all kinds of people in the sector, and just try and see what they think is going on, share what I think is going on, and just, it can lead to a lot of things. It can lead to conversations like we're having today, which we met through networking. It can lead to being invited to be on panel discussions. It can lead to someone saying, I talked to someone the other day and they would be perfect for this job that you have. So I think it's just knowing who you really are and what you want and what you're passionate about, and matching that up. Again, back to the dating thing, matching it up with the nonprofit that's doing that.
I love it. I think we're going to change the title of this episode to, shall we say, dating in the nonprofit? Or
we may be able to have a fundraiser based around dating now.
I love it. This is so creative. Well, I have my last question for you, Sharon.
Sure.
And so this one, what is one emerging trend within the nonprofit industry, and how do you see that impacting the industry in the future?
I think it's, if I can have not just one, but if I can have two, because they kind of go together, it would be creativity and innovation. So finding new ways to get your message out that'll make you stand out from the crowd, hosting engaging events, not just the boring, someone stands up and speaks and then you all eat dinner and go home. So just getting the audience engaged in what you do, and making room for young people to participate. So a good example of this, and this was mass participation, was, this is going back to 2014, the Ice Bucket Challenge. Do you remember that? And so it drew so much attention for ALS. Prior to that challenge, ALS was a little known disease that struggled to fundraise, and this just launched them into the stratosphere. Like, everyone wanted to throw a pail of cold water over their head for whatever reason that was. And it brought a ton of innovation and change and made them a household name. And they didn't know that when they started. They didn't hire a fancy PR team. They didn't embark on some expensive marketing promotion. They simply came up with this quirky idea, and it might have been over beer in a bar somewhere. Let's get people to dump cold water over their head and see if they'll raise money. And it simply went viral. We can't predict what goes viral, but there's no magic formula, and this worked for them. And now they're doing amazing work, and they're probably on the tipping point of, some amazing steps in helping with that disease. So I think you just have to step outside your comfort zone. And certainly people did in this sense with the Goldwater. And I think just be innovative. Like that phrase that just makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up is that, well, we've always done it this way. And I never want to hear that when I'm out there dealing in these circumstances. So just try new things, be innovative, be creative. Don't make assumptions that it won't work. You won't know it won't work until you put it out there and try. So I would just say for people to just get out there and do it.
I love it. Be entrepreneurial.
Exactly.
And yes, I believe the entrepreneurial mindset applies to everything that we do in life, including dating.
Exactly. And I think the entrepreneurial aspect is quite new to the nonprofit sector. They haven't really delved into that as much. And consequently, there isn't as much collaboration going on, perhaps, as there should be. So they're working towards that. And I've been really pushing the agenda on the collaboration side of things that, don't hold things so close to the chest. Get out there and talk to your competition. They're not competition. You're all trying to save the world. So do it together. This isn't a business where you're selling widgets and you want to sell more than the guy down the street. This is changing people's lives. So I think collaboration is going to be the key to the future of the nonprofit sector.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing your wisdom today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Until next time. Bye for now.